Welcome back to the Real Football Show. I'm your host Ryan Lam. I have some news to announce that I'm currently only accepting my fandom status as Manchester United women's team instead of the men's team. And today, well, I brought back a guest that I had in early iterations of the podcast, my friend Madeline. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing, Ryan?
It's been a while. I know we talk a bunch on the side, but it's been a while. So let's just get straight into it because we have a very interesting situation, I guess, in our hands with FIFA. So, of course, FIFA is the kind of, I would say, the go to game still when it comes to soccer or football games that actually includes gameplay. Of course, if you're on the other side of things, you would be a football manager guy like I do, or some of our previous guests do, but FIFA is still very much, you know, a main game that people play. And a few years ago, they decided to put in women's players, but only in the capacity of national teams instead of having to do the licensing of different separate teams and having bigger rosters and stuff like that. So when ratings come out, people debate about it, be it, oh, Ronaldo's a 92 instead of 93, or, who's the highest rating. Mbappe got like a 90 card and stuff like that. But in this case, the women's rankings are a little bit head scratching as it came out and we started discussing it and we decided that it's a good idea to talk about it. So, I mean, first things first, when we would go through the rankings, of course, first thing first, what are your reactions coming out with the graphic and we talked about the graphics a little bit, but then also the rankings as we dive deeper into it.
Well, I feel like FIFA doesn't pay enough attention to what's really going on in soccer and how good players really are in the real world, like it does more or less with the men's team. So I feel like the group of players chosen as the top 15 in FIFA 21 are, for the most part, it's a decent group. I think there are some players that I would not include in the top 15 and some players I would that were not included. So I think they're in the realm of reality, but it's definitely not quite there.
Yeah, even when we look at it, there are like for me personally, there are names in the top 5 that I've kept in within the top 6, top 7, definitely deserving, but then also there are some restrictions with it, as in they don't have all the teams. Even some of the teams that came up maybe later a little bit more in since they implemented women's soccer, they don't have it, they don't have Denmark, so there's no Pernille Harder there. I don't think they have Brazil, because if Brazil's there, Marta is on there. So the whole thing is a little bit puzzling, to say the least. But then let's just quickly go through the rankings first. It should show up in your screen in a little bit in the broadcast version of it, dolled up version of it, whatever you want to call. But it goes from this. Number one's Megan Rapinoe with 93. We got 292s in Sam Kerr and Wendie Renard. We got 391s, Vivianne, Miedema, Amandine, and Dzsenifer Marozsan. A bunch of 90s, Lucy Bronze, Janila Samaya, Caroline Hansen, Tobin, Heath, and Alex Morgan. Lieke Martens, Almuth, Schult, and Sinclair, Christina Sinclair at 89, and Julie Ertz at 88. We are going to go through our list in a little bit, but what are some of the biggest surprises that you see from this list, or continuing our discussion of how puzzled we are with this whole thing?
Yeah, I'm surprised, well, not really surprised, but Alex Morgan being in the top 15. I mean, she's been good for a while, but I personally feel like she's not quite, top 15. Also, Christine Sinclair, who's nearing the end of her career. Obviously, she's still good, but again, top 15, I think it's a bit overrated.
Yeah, and the one thing I kind of have to mention is that I agree with basically a lot of the inclusions of American players in that list. But then there's some of them that definitely overshot it. I don't think Rapinoe is one. And a matter of fact, just from her performance, of course she had a really good World Cup, but then afterward she barely even played in the league, and like basically throughout the year, and especially in the Challenge Cup and the Fall Series as well, she is not participating. So like that's a huge dock for me, considering there are a lot of players in, especially in the European leagues, who are featuring and basically have to finish the season maybe toward the end if they continue playing, or with European competitions like the Champions League and whatnot, and then continuing into next season basically at the blink of an eye again. And the thing about American players is that like we both watch women's soccer, and like the US is definitely like, it's probably still the best team in the world. Like you could argue for France, Netherlands, they're very good teams, but then the good of the US, I don't know if you like agree with me 100% with this, is because of they have a lot of A minus B plus players, while other countries could have like maybe 2 or 3 A players. Like I feel like France is the other outlier, like they're A or A plus, and then their other players are more like B, toward like the B minus C plus. So as the whole team go together, they kind of like, you know, have some ups and downs. Do you agree with that, or like something along the lines of that?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the US has like a lot of depth to the team, and like other teams don't have as much depth, but like they'll have like a few really good players, so that kind of keeps them competitive.
Hmm. So I mean, let's begin with our lists. How about that? Like I'll start. Let's go back and forth from 15 to 1. I would like to start off actually with kind of an omission with Ada Hegerberg, because she hasn't played, and in this context, she is not in the national team setup because of her fight toward, you know, equal pay, and all that. So I have like on the side decided that like I'll leave her off, or else she could have been top 5 at least for me. But injuries and stuff, in taking consideration with, you know, past season, I've decided to let her off. The first pick of mine might be a little bit of a novelty pick. It's Sarah Bjarkanesdottir from Iceland, and also he plays for Lyon now. And she's a very interesting case because literally her 2 teams that she played for last season both made the Champions League final. And during the lockdown, she made the switch from Wolfsburg to Lyon, and we all knew what happened with Lyon winning the Champions League. So she's my first pick in 15. Who do you have?
So I actually have a goalkeeper. I picked Alyssa Naeher. I think the top 15 should have at least one goalkeeper, and I think, well, in the original rankings, there was Schult from Germany, and I mean that was another one of my surprises. So I think, like, if any goalkeeper should be in it, it should be Naeher.
Yeah, I feel like Naeher is. I didn't have a goalkeeper. I kind of overlooked that, but then like Naeher should be one. If you could argue, like Sari van Veenendaal is a really good goalkeeper to me, but then she doesn't even start at Atletico, and that's kind of a whole funny affair to me. But we could go into that later, when at like even in the future, as we talk more about the European scene with regards to women's soccer. My 14th is, I was going to do a split, but then I'm going to be more fair than more biased. I'm going to pick a Dutch center midfielder. And it was between Daniel van der Donk or Jackie Gurnen, and I picked Daniel van der Donk because I don't want to be biased in this situation. But then also she has the keys to one of the more successful teams, both in continental Europe, like club wise, but also country wise. Of course, the partnership with her and Jill Ward has been on fire, especially with Arsenal clanking up those big wins, and like Van der Donk has that like kind of, you know, chippiness in her that really makes her a really good, like, she's a pretty traditional 8, and in the defensive side she could definitely chip in apart from his offensive talent.
So I have, and she might be a bit low, but I have Caroline Graham Hansen. I think in general, I feel like she is a bit underrated. FIFA obviously ranked her a bit higher, but I think like definitely she's really dangerous in the attack, and like it's obviously one of Norway's best players.
Mhm. So Caroline Graham Hansen is at my 13th. So It's basically the same. I feel like might be overshooting it, but then Norway, like the Scandinavian teams are so really really solid with their players, especially now that she kind of has to be good. Like Norway's good. They had the best player in the world, and she left, but they're still good. And there are players like that who mattered in the setup that definitely stepped up. So it's the same. It's the same pick for me. And at 13, who do you have?
So I have Marta, and I know she's kind of nearing the end of her career, but I still feel like her skill on the ball and her creativity is unmatched.
Yeah, I actually have Marta higher. I'll kind of review that toward later. But then let's move on to 12. Hopefully we have different. I'm just kidding. Crystal Dunn. I feel like she's kind of a special talent in a way that I appreciate more. She has a, of course, she plays in that box midfield at North Carolina, and she plays basically a 10 alongside Vivianne. And in the national team, she gets shifts over to left back and still plays solid. Like I feel like this is maybe an outlier for me, but then like the versatility she could provide that might not be reflected that well in FIFA, to be honest. But then just from like my personal judgment standpoint, like I really rate her high just because of like her having those abilities and being part of that basically Death Star that North Carolina built, and then of course securing her spot in the women's national team setup.
And for me at 12, I have Lieke Martens. And obviously, I feel like she was at the height of her career in 2017 with the Euros. That's when she really made a name for herself. And we haven't really talked about her, I guess, as much since then. But, I mean, still, she's one of the best players in the world and has that creativity and the skill that really helps her teams.
I have Lieke Martens next. So, next, I believe we're at number 11 for you.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I have Julie Ertz. Oh wait, no, actually it's Tobin Heath. So Tobin Heath, and I mean, like she's just always been good, and sometimes I feel like towards the beginning of her career she was underrated. Maybe now she's finally getting the recognition she deserves. But yeah, definitely one of the best players in the world still today.
Guess who do I have at 10?
Tobin Heath.
I had Tobin Heath at 10, of course. She's one of my favorite players, honestly, to watch because she's so skillful on the ball, and she basically could be a very flexible piece in the front three. And now that it really helps that she has moved over to my team, and I look forward to watching her play like week in and week out, and like in a stable league play environment. And it's also going to be different because like as of right now, like the competition level of the Women's Super League, I feel like it's amazing with all of the teams throwing in money literally to get the types of players like Tobin Heath, Kristen Press for United. You got Alex Morgan to Tottenham, and Lavelle, Mewis, all of them. That would be a very, very fun showdown that they get to have. So, who do you have at 10?
At 10, I have Julie Ertz, who, I mean, her versatility in the defensive part of the field is very good. Obviously, towards the beginning of her career, she played center back, and now she's more of a defensive midfielder. So I feel like just the quality she brings, are just very good.
I was debating, like, I might be stupid for not putting Julie Ertz on this list, but then just I'll find an explanation for myself as we roll deeper into the list. But then she would definitely make like kind of the end, maybe 10 to 15 part of my list. But there are lapses of judgment. For number 9, I'm not being a pandering person. I'm sure you probably have her higher. I have a Majri, and just because like her role on both Lyon and France, even looking at the France squad like the other day, which is really weird with all the injuries, it shows like the type of role and type of versatility she could have, especially like on the like on the wings and all that. But I'm sure you're going to go deeper into her later as we go move on to the list. Who do you have next?
I have Lucy Bronze, and to be honest, I sometimes feel like she's a bit overrated. Like, I don't even think she's the best outside back in the world, but I mean, she still is a rock defensively and can bring a lot going forward. So I think she is worthy of a top 15 spot.
Yes, I definitely feel like Lucy Bronze, especially in this current like English setup, she's probably one of the top talents that they have. She could like even looking at the situational plays that they have. I think against the U.S. they pushed her up to like in the World Cup they pushed her up to right wing, so kind of they defaulted to playing like two right backs. But then it's kind of stupid because she has been really good with Nikita Paris throughout the whole tournament and all that, and we shall not discuss that right now because we still have like half of our list to go through. For me, the next pick is Marta. We don't have to talk about how good she is. Like everyone just knows if you follow the sport. And of course, she's now still playing strong with Orlando, and she could still like run with anyone, like right now. And I'm just sad that like Brazil didn't see the need to, continuously promote and not really promote, but like develop the soccer in the women's side to have someone like Marta come up and then not have a supporting class and having Formiga play until she's 42. So who do you have next?
I have Janila Samaya, and like she's just been so consistent throughout her whole career with France and Lyon, like always one of the top scorers, and I mean always just a dangerous threat in the attack.
Yeah, Lesomer is an interesting case because I I know she's good. Like I've started watching France a little bit more so like during like right before and during the World Cup. And the thing is that I don't know, it's just probably a surplus of talent. Sometimes she didn't even get to start in Lyon. Like in the I think in the Champions League in the like I was watching the semifinal and the final. I don't think she started either of those. And yeah, I feel like that's a surplus of talent. I definitely recognize her talent, but then I just kind of let her slide in this list. But then, just to follow up, I have another French in that setup in Amandine. I think she could be higher. She's definitely the best six in women's soccer right now, in my opinion. And yeah, she just has the composure and everything she needs in that position, especially with the wealth of her talents right in front of her in both France and Lyon.
And I have Megan Rapinoe, and like you said, it's a bit controversial because she hasn't really played that much despite having a really good World Cup. But I feel like whenever she does get on the field, like she's always making an impact, always making a difference, and just like, is always one of the biggest threats on the field whenever she plays.
Yep. I believe we're currently in the top 6 now. So let's see. Number 6, I have her ranked higher than you did. I have Lucy. What did I already say? Lucy Bronze. I did already say. I don't know what I'm doing sometimes, but let's move. Let's have. Did I already say Lucy Bronze, or was I just?
I don't know.
Let's put Lucy Bronze there because we're talking about her being one of the top English players, and also just having the partnership with Paris that they could still go on for a long time and take over that flank. And she's back in City now, completely different challenge. And you could kind of see Lyon is still good, but Ellie Carpenter is no Lucy Bronze. And you could see that kind of still working for the team. But then also, City definitely got a good one, trying to attract more of the British talent back and to headline their team. Who do you have for 6?
I have Amel Majri, and I've said it before and I'll say it again. I think she's so underrated. does not get the appreciation she deserves. I mean, obviously, other than Henri, Sommer, and Renard, like she's like among the best French players right now, and like she's finally playing up higher on the pitch. You know, she was playing left back for a while, but now she finally has the opportunity to go forward and just use her creativity and skill, and she's actually scoring a lot more goals now, which I'm so happy about.
Yeah, like I've gone a little bit into it, but then I feel like you just put it well. Like sometimes it's just waiting for that opportunity to come up, and Amel Majri definitely sees that, and in a setup where could challenge the best in women's soccer in possibly the coming years if they could keep that core intact and no one like falls off. Yeah, definitely. So top five time. Yes, I have Jennifer Marozsan at 5. Of course, in the midfield, she is such an important player for Germany and also for her club. And like the way she could play and she could dictate the action, like that shows like how influential she is throughout the game. Especially the game's getting more and more technical, and like you kind of have to be technical in the women's game because like I hate to make those comparisons sometimes, but then definitely the women's game are lacking the pace and power that some would consider more important in men's game, and especially in FIFA where pace and power is everything. So Marozsan definitely is way high up there for me in terms of just being an amazing midfielder overall.
And for me at 5, I have Vivianne Miedema, and she's just a ridiculous goal scorer despite still being pretty young. So I think like she still has a lot to improve. She can be even better, but right now she's definitely one of the best strikers in the world.
I have Miedema at 4. Like just apart from the ridiculous setup she has in terms of supplying, like in both Arsenal and Netherlands, like she still has to put those goals in, and she scored some of the most amazing goals you would see basically week in and week out with her skill and her touch. And I don't think Miedema like we don't have to make an argument for her being high up. I would definitely say that. So who's your 4th?
At 4, I have Jennifer Marozsan, and I do have to say I'm kind of disappointed that she didn't move to Utah, because I know that was rumored, but she's staying with Lyon, which is still cool because she's still one of the best players on that team, and just like, yeah, I mean, she's definitely one of the best midfielders in the world.
Yeah, and the whole Utah thing could be a little bit like weird timing wise because, with Marjan Buhati gone and Lyon still having to play in the Champions League final, like who's like that was back in the Challenge Cup when this rumor started to float around. Like who's to say if they're gonna get called back and whatever, and international travels might complicate things. And let's move on to top 3 because I'm pretty sure we might have the same 3 players, maybe in different order. For number 3, I have Wendie Renard. She's just amazing. Of course, on the defensive side, she's super solid, and then she has a very, very scary goal scoring record as a center back and a defender. And of course, such a huge member of that Lyon team, scoring some clutch goals in the end as well in this year's Champions League, but then also France, who has been very good.
I also have Renard at 3, and yeah, she doesn't really need much of an explanation, just absolutely incredible at center back, and yeah, I agree with you 100%.
All right, let's see if our top 2 are the same too. Number 2, I have Sam Kerr. Her production numbers definitely a little bit down in Chelsea, but then considering she made the move halfway through the last WSL season and didn't play a lot because again of the lockdown, and then just coming back and starting off, and she did have a few goals, like I think like one or 2 goals early on in those games, but then we're watching Chelsea battering teams like 9-0, 8-1, whatever those ridiculous score lines are. She doesn't need to be that superstar MVP in the NWSL to carry a team. because in Chelsea she has like really good players like Aaron Cuthbert, like Beth England, even G and all of them that could support her. But then in front of goal, like I would still take Sam Kerr over a lot of players, and she's like definitely basically 1A, 1B for me right now. Sam Kerr and Miedema.
And for me at number 2, I have Amandine, and yeah, she's just so consistently good, always bossing the French midfield, and for Lyon as well. Just like, I think for a while now, she's been definitely a top 5 player in the world.
Oh, so there's someone who fell off, probably. My number 1 is Pernille Harder. I feel like right now, without Hegerberg, especially in the past year, I feel like she's the best player in the world currently. And of course, ran into a buzzsaw a little bit with Lyon, but then she has been a very important part of that Wolfsburg midfield. And losing Gunnarsdottir as her partner definitely sucks. But now, let's see how she does in Chelsea.
And I agree with you that Harder is the best player in the world, but since she is not in FIFA, I picked Sam Kerr as number 1. Who, I mean, it's scary to think that like Kerr and Harder are going to be on the same team now. So, because they're definitely like 2 of the best players in the world. So, I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
All right, so after a bunch of back and forth, we have our top 15 set up. And we've also kind of mentioned players that, we feel a little bit remorse about missing out, I guess, or not including them. So I would actually like to ask a couple of, I don't want to say surprise, but quick hitter questions for you, especially in the WSL. Like you talked about, like we've talked a lot about the WSL and talent coming over. How do you see like Chelsea and Arsenal and maybe United fighting it out from your angle? I'm just putting United in because like City definitely is finishing like top 3 with Arsenal and Chelsea, and I hope United gets a good spot.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting because in the past, like I haven't really paid attention to the WSL. And I think now, I mean, you're seeing a bunch of really good American players, Kristen Press, Tobin Heath, Alex Morgan, and others, just finally entering the league. And that should just, I guess, give it a lot of like attention, but also like a lot of quality as well. And I don't know, it's really hard to pick like who's really the favorite to win the league. I don't know. I feel like Arsenal's a good choice, but also Manchester City, like I don't really know. But I mean, I would say Chelsea though. I think I have to pick Chelsea as the favorite.
Yeah, like that league, of course, the talent intake has been absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure we will have a chance to talk about the WSL and everything around women's soccer more because, I'm definitely bringing you back. Like it's not even really a debate. So for more on women's soccer, for more on possibly we could talk about PSG, we could talk about Dortmund, we could talk about pretty much any team in Europe or whatnot. Stay tuned because this partnership will definitely be back. We might have another guest on. We'll never know. But thank you very much for coming on today, Madeline.
Yeah, of course.
Yep, so that wraps it up for today's episode. And yeah, stay tuned for more.